Hello and welcome to race 8 of the silly season. We are back in what feels like it has been a very long time. It is great to be back in Formula 1 commentary for one last time. He's been the screensaver for the last 5 days. He's going to be for the next 10. I'm welcoming to join alongside me once again, Skin. It's an absolute pleasure to have you for this race here at Silverstone.
They said we were gone forever, and we keep getting dragged back, don't they? They can't get rid of us. Like I said, one last time, one time only, one night only, whatever you want to call it. Quincy reached out. He said he needs a job doing, and for some reason he decided to reach out to us. So that's it. But yeah, I'm looking forward to getting stuck in. Some new drivers, some very recognisable names on the grid. I'm sure it'll be a good time over the next hour and a half or so.
We have well and truly got the band back together for what is going to be one full qualifying session of 18 minutes, followed by 9 laps in a sprint race, followed by 26 laps of race 8 of the Silly Season Racing League. Leading the table at the moment as we jump on board with the No Sabo. He's the first out on an out lap, providing he doesn't bail at the very end and decide to abort his lap. He will be the first one to set a time for us here this afternoon. We are jumping on board with the No Sabo and Formula 1 Farah, I believe, Skin. If you want to jump on board with him, we'll keep an eye on the Williams as he's going round as well. I'm just looking at the standings, and we said, we've seen this before, Pleasant Snake and Herman, two phenomenal drivers in this video game, both without a permanent seat when we last covered any league. Now, as teammates, leading the Constructors' Championship by 141 points. Together, they are on 229. Second place is on 88. Speaks volumes, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely, mate. Herman, we know, was dominating in the previous league before we stepped away and put our mics down. I will point out, mate, if you ever tell me who to follow again, I will quit. So don't tell me who to watch and who to follow. The people watch my streams for my chaotic camera work, and I won't let anything stop me, especially for one night only. But yeah. Obviously, we've not watched any of the races. We can only go off of the stats that have been provided by Quincy earlier this week. But it does seem so far like Haas and the individual drivers are dominating this season so far.
And I'm just looking at the Drivers' Championship as well. Herman is leading on 142. Second place is Pleasant Snake on 87. Your favoured driver, Danger David, currently out in second place in the Ferrari at the moment. Ferrari, of all teams, doesn't have a permanent seat in this league. He's currently sat in sixth place at the moment. He's down as with a Ferrari, but we've also been told that he's down as a reserve driver, so he might be the Ferrari reserve driver, but still, sixth place isn't a bad effort, I say, is it?
No, definitely not, mate. And we know all too well from the many races that we commentated on that involved Danger David that if he's involved and if he's on the grid come race time, we're in for an entertaining watch. So yeah, I'm glad to see him on the grid today. But just on board with the No Sabo, like you said a couple of minutes ago, should be the first to set a time. He hasn't pitted, so let's see how we get on as he goes around the final corner. 1:27.7 is the time to beat. So yeah, let's see over the next 14 minutes or so what that pole lap looks like. But yeah, 1:27.7 is the pole lap as it stands.
I will let you know that I've just had confirmation from Quincy, who is watching on the YouTube channel with us, that Danger David is a full-time driver at Ferrari. We've seen him race for Red Bull and Mercedes in the past. He's now at Ferrari, so he's very much going to be doing a Lewis Hamilton is the route I'm going to take with that as we watch Formula 1 Farah going round the final few corners. Went purple in Sector 2. He's got a 1:27.7 to beat. Coming round onto the pit straight now. If he can beat that time, he'll take provisional pole away from the McLaren of the No Sabo. He sets a time of 1:26.095, takes provisional pole away. So the Williams currently out in first place. I'm just looking for who is likely to be next around. I think we've got RPM Sinful or T-Bran as next to cross the line. It is in fact going to be the Mr. Wouter 0013 going round onto the pit straight. He's got 126.1 is his time. That puts him into second place, just behind the No Sabo. And then his teammate, Jolly Boy John, takes third place. So a Red Bull 2-3 at the moment. Let's jump on board with... Herman has just made his way around. Pleasant Snake is on an outlap at the moment, so we'll keep an eye on those. We'll jump on board now with Trugster in the Aston Martin, going round onto the pit straight at the moment. 126.095 the time to beat. He's not done it. He's got 126.9, puts him in fifth place at the moment. So the No Sabo just going backwards at the minute. Kovaska is on a 127.2. You said before we started, I am going to be pronouncing names incorrectly. If you've not watched one of the streams before, it is a common theme. Get your bingo cards out. There are at least 20 drivers here that I'm going to be pronouncing incorrectly at some point over the course of the next couple of hours. Fellow Son takes fourth place in the Alpine. Andy Andrell 1992 takes third in the Mercedes. They're the two times that we did miss. Formula One Farah, as it stands though, still out at the moment on a 126.095. I'm on board with Tibran at the moment. Going to be very close if he can make that time as he takes the final corner onto the pit straight. 126.968. That will leave him in 8th place in the Alfa Romeo. So 8th and 9th at the moment for the Alfa Romeos. As we'll try and find another driver close towards the end. We'll go with Teco 36 at the moment. He's just a couple of corners away. Then Herman will follow him on the way through his car, starting to pit after their first go-round. Kimakus and Kachahu is the two drivers that have retired from the qualifying session, as Teco 36 makes his way onto the pit straight, and he sets a time of 128.5, puts him at the back of the grid for now, and Herman sets a 126.3 that puts him up into 5th place. So we'll jump on board. In fact, we'll try and come back to Pleasant Snake a little bit later as we see SCR F-Tronic. Their time has been classed as null and void, so we'll see if they decide to stay out or if they choose to go back in. So let's jump on board with Quan at the moment in the Williams, on his way towards Maggots and Beckett's at the moment, just finishing off in Sector 2. 126.0 the time to beat if he's to get himself onto provisional pole. Into the top 10, just a 127.2. It's the first lap, of course, for himself. There'll be a couple of drivers in the next 5 minutes or so on the way back out for their second attempts. Remember, just one 18-minute qualifying session, and where you finish at the end of this session is where you will start the sprint race, starting very, very soon. Just finished Maggots and Beckett's, on his way towards the final few corners now is Quan in the Williams. His teammate sat out on pole position at the moment. He doesn't have a purple sector just yet. Can he get it in Sector 3 and take pole position away? He cannot. He gets a 127.4. That puts him into 11th place. So we'll jump on board with Pleasant Snake. 126.4 puts him into 6th place alongside his Haas teammate, the two leading the Constructors' Championship at the moment. F-Trunk, we'll see just what he's going to decide to do at the minute. His Formula One Farah betters his time, getting a 125.8 out in front at the moment. F-Trunk, unsurprisingly, has chosen to go into the pit, so we'll jump on board with Quincy, the last of the drivers that are out there for their first stint at the moment, yet to set a timed lap, as Skid Solo and SCR F-Trunk have both gone into the pits, heading towards Maggots and Beckett's. Skin, most drivers now done their first lap. What's your thoughts?
I nearly fell asleep, mate, because it speaks to me for about 6 minutes, so I've no idea what happened. No, I'm joking. I've been on board with quite a few. Watched Herman, quite surprised to see him, about half a second off the pole lap. I was on board with him for his whole lap, so yeah, half a second we know in Formula One is a lot, as Quincy decides to pit despite not yet setting a time, was on his hot lap. So it needs to be very quick to get in and out here if he's going to have time to push for the front of that grid. Yeah, Herman the German, we know, like I mentioned earlier, very dominant previously, but currently half a second behind Formula One Farah. So is that a sign of the increase in ability and competitiveness, should I say, within this league that we've not watched for a good couple of months now, or is that just a bit of a pole lap by his usual standards? And do you expect him to see him back up on the front row of that grid like we normally do when it comes to that final lap?
I fully expect him to see him there or thereabouts when the final lap and it's all said and done and we're ready for the sprint race. The thing I've learnt with Herman is he'll never put everything out there on the first attempt. Like what we saw with Danger David, he tends to be there or thereabouts, and he's very good at climbing up from the back of the group with with Herman, what it tends to be is a case of he'll go out there, he'll test, the grip of the tyres, the way the track's running, and he'll get himself comfortable with it. And that time will normally just be a steady time that will get him somewhere towards the top 8. And then he'll go back out there and he'll absolutely leather it. And that's where he'll normally finish top 3. And of course, he's got the added advantage of a sprint race that really means he's got extra points available for himself. He could start the entire race on the front row of the grid. You what, sorry? You what? I thought you were making noises then. Anyway,
sorry.
Yeah,
right?
Cool. Thought as much. Yeah, mate, it's just hearing things in my head, isn't it? All them voices. Yeah. So Herman in 5th place at the moment. I think I expect to see him in the top 3 by the end of it. And then, of course, after the sprint race, on pole position, I expect him to be back where we are familiar with seeing him, as we're on board with the No Sabo at the moment, just going into Sector 3. 125.8 the time to beat to get pole position, 127.7 to better his own time. He has gone green in Sector 2. I believe he went green in Sector 1 as well, which gives the indication that he is set to beat his better time. Whether he's going to beat the time of the Williams of Formula 1 Borough, he won't, and he won't actually beat his own time. A green Sector 1 and a green Sector 2, not enough through Sector 3, Skin.
No, absolutely not, mate. I'm just on board with a fellow son, currently in 4th place on a timed lap at the moment, just coming up towards sort of the halfway point of Sector 2, so call it the halfway point of the track. Currently in 4th place, again, half a second off that top spot, so going to have to find quite a bit of time if he's hoping for a better position. But as he crosses the line, invalidated lap. So there goes that one. I'm going to jump back on board now with Herman the German because he is on a timed lap. Can he find that half a second that we mentioned earlier that's going to get him a pole, if not a spot on the front row of the grid? Just coming up now to the end of Sector 1. Let's see where that time's compared to his previous best lap. He's only cutting off 2/100ths of a second. So as it stands, will not be, well, actually, it's close to him and 4th. So as it stands, we'll be moving up into 4th place, but needs to find quite a bit in Sector 2 and 3 if he's going to be any higher than that, and looking at we'll call it a provisional podium spot, starting in that top 3. Adam, you mentioned that you were hearing noises earlier. Are you okay?
Yes, mate, I've just had a minute to myself and I should be feeling much better now, so it's all good to carry on as Herman finishes off Maggots and Beckett's with a purple Sector 2, so 0.047 quicker than Formula 1 Farah. So we'll see just how that fares at the end of Sector 3. We do still have F-Tron, Skid Solo and Quincy.
Let's speculate for a moment. Sorry to interrupt, but it's a good talking point there. That minus 0.04...
He's gone off.
Is
that
he's
me?
In the gravel, yeah. No, he's in the gravel. He didn't fancy it. The minus 0.047. Now, I always assumed that was comparing to their previous best lap. You commentated on it there to say that it was timed against the provisional pole lap. So, which is it?
I feel that because it's a purple Sector 2, it is better than the entire grid. So it's the fastest purple, fastest Sector 2. So my assumption was that was based upon whatever colour the chart shows on the track. So on the track, if it shows green and it shows you minus, it shows that you're quicker than your best time. If it shows purple, it shows you quicker than the best time. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. I just always took it as it was a comparison to that actual person's best individual lap up to that point. But Herman is continuing, went off into the gravel. I'm going to assume that he's going to go again. I don't
think he's got time to go in
now, then go back out. He's going to be cutting it fine, isn't he? And especially now he's slowing down. Surely he's not going to pit here because, well, you're going to struggle to get in and get back out and do your outlap. But again, Herman the German, many times previously, has given everything on the last lap and found a pole position. So, got to get his timings right here. I'm not really sure. We are approaching now the final corner before the pit entrance. 3.5 minutes to go. Surely, with Silverstone being a longer track, he is not pitting here. And if he does, no, he is. Right, okay. Is that Herman just resigning to the fact that it's going to be sort of a mid-top 10 start, or do we expect him to try and get in and out and give it all on that one last lap?
It depends. I've just watched Skid Solo do the exact same thing, and I thought that it was a foregone conclusion that if with 3.5 minutes left you go into the pits at Silverstone, you're not coming out to set yourself a time. I think if you are going to come back out now, it needs to be within the next 30 to 40 seconds, and you need to make sure that you're not even preserving those tyres on that lap to make sure you get round before the time expires. I think it's going to be very close otherwise with the amount of cars that could have that same sort of idea. We just look now at the cars on the left-hand side that are coming back out onto outlaps. You've got Andy Andrell, Fellow Son, you've got Pleasant Snake, Danger David, Trugster, Kovacka, Kwan, Teco, and Quincy all out on outlaps at the moment. You've got more joining now. Formula One Forest just joined that group as well. You know, Jolly Boy John as well. If you've got all those that are now coming out onto outlaps, you think you're going to be adding Herman to that, you're going to be adding Skid Solo to that. They're then going to be stuck behind this traffic. I don't think there's enough time. I think we're seeing Skid Solo start 19th at best, 20th if Quincy can set any time at all. And I think we're going to see...
started a timed lap, and this is it. So
we'll come to that in a minute, because I'm on board with T-Bran, who set a purple Sector 2, and he's going around onto the pit straight now with a 125.8 as the time to beat. He has just missed it. It's a 126.6, which I say just missed it. That leaves him down in 9th place, which talks about just how close things are here. You've got 2 seconds separating first place from 15th place. And that's quite I know 2 seconds, obviously a lot of time in Formula One terms, but it's still quite a close gap, isn't it? You find a bit more time, you have a good lap, and, you know, you're very close. But I can tell you now, Herman's out and Skid Solo are out on track at the moment. So I think it's going to be very close. I think Skid Solo's just going to make it. I think Herman's a little bit behind him, actually. Herman is just behind him. So I think they're both going to be cutting it very fine, but Herman's got a couple of cars in front of him that could really make this difficult. He's going to go through the one-shot qualifying sort of mentality. I know that's what Skid Solo's doing at the moment. With 1 minute 10, all they've got to do is cross that checkered flag before time expires, and they'll be able to finish that lap. If they don't quite manage it in time, their qualifying session is over, and the best they can hope for is where they are at the moment. RPM Sinful will start at the best 12th place. 127.3 was his time that he retired on. As we've got yellow flags in Sector 3, his cars are slowing down. I think we're going to be all right for Herman. I think we're going to be all right for Skid Solo, who's currently sat in 20th place, as Quincy sets a 129.3. Gets him into 17th.
Herman is going to get a time off here. Herman is going to get a time off going around the penultimate corner, so we'll have time for one time lap only. Just on board, sorry to interrupt, just wanted to get that out there. Slightly breaking news, Danger David is currently shaving a 10th off after Sector 1. Could be climbing up the board here, currently in 7th place. Adam, just as I stay on track with Danger David as he goes round into the midway point of Sector 2, who are you on board with?
I was on board with Andy Andrell. I'm just changing that now to find who it is that's about to go around the final corner. It is Kovacka. He's set a 126.6, moves him up into 10th place. Andy Andrell has got a red time. His time's null and void, so he won't be able to finish at this point. So it's T-Bran, Kovacka, Trugster, and Osebo that are all out at the moment. So I've jumped on board at the moment with Kwan in the Williams, whose teammate is currently the pole sitter, as he makes his way around these last couple of corners to see if he can beat the time his teammate set. He can't. The closest he can get is 14th place on the grid. I know you're following Herman round at the moment, so I'll jump on board with Danger David. Go on then.
Around the final corner. Can he set a faster time than 126? He takes
Wow, and while you're saying that about Danger David, Herman will not be beating his time. Herman, according to the track on the bottom right, Herman is red across the track. That means his time, he's gone in. His time is cancelled. He's going to be starting in 6th place. Andy Andrell's done the exact same thing. Skid Solo's down in 20th place. He sets a time of 128.4, moves him up to 17th place. That is it. Danger David takes pole position right at the end by 0.04 of a second ahead of Formula One Fara, who has led from the very beginning of this qualifying session. You followed that lap round. I'll let you break down just how well he managed to take that to beat the time that looked unbeatable.
Yeah, fantastic lap. I mean, it's 0.04 of a second, so there's an Adam's fucking penis in it. It's that small of a gap. And brilliant lap from Nate Danger David. And we've always spoke about, previously he's been maybe second, third, fourth in the start, and then he's got caught up in some traffic in front of him that's led him to drop down the grid. Do you think him having no traffic in front of him and being able to set the pace is going to, see a change in fortune now that first lap or two usually goes for him?
Yeah, I think it's certainly a difference maker, isn't it? We spoke about how Herman was going to struggle because he'd got cars ahead of him. We mentioned about the McLaren that was going to struggle as well because of the traffic that was in front of him. Just to mention, you can see there the Nosebo got a 5-position penalty at the end of that qualifying session that falls him down into 14th place ahead of the sprint race that will be taking place in just a moment's time. Yeah, we had Scott Solo that was also making his way around in traffic. It does affect things, doesn't it? As much as we know it does in real life, the game's that realistic that, it does affect it when you've caught up in traffic. You've got dirty air ahead of you, that kind of thing. So I think having the open track helped Danger David get to where he is. I know from past experiences that he's very good at falling down the grid and working his way back up. When he starts in pole position, it's very rare that he actually finishes in first place. Would you agree?
Yeah, 100% agree, mate, yeah. It's got a sprint first before the race, haven't we?
Yeah, 9-lap sprint race to determine who is going to be on pole position for the actual race. I'm not quite sure if there's a formation lap. That's probably something that we should have got from the debriefing. But we'll find out at the point. So yeah, when it comes to the sprint race in a moment, there's no pit stops required, nothing like that. And just looking at it, it doesn't look like it's raining at the moment, but the clouds and the typical British weather means it could be raining at any point. So I'll ask you now for your top 3 at the end of this sprint race. Who do you think it's going to be?
Danger David, Drugster, Herman the German man. What about you?
I think it is going to be Herman. Then I think it is going to be Danger David. Then I think it's going to be Pleasant Snake. I think the two Haas drivers have worked very well together throughout the course of this season. Looking at the results that they've had so far this season, the teamwork they've had, it's very much a replica of what we saw with Danger David and Di Perez, who I know has raced a couple of times in this league. I think that what we've seen so far is a very different Pleasant Snake from what I've seen before, and he's proven that he can actually race with the best. And I think that at the moment, this track could really work to his advantage, and I think as a team, him and Herman could work very nicely together. So I think first for Herman, second for Danger David, and third place for Pleasant Snake. I'm not quite sure what we should discuss whilst we are waiting for players. Never mind, because we're about to start instead. We do have a formation lap on its way now, so it'll be Danger David in first, Formula 1 Farah second. Are we off?
Yeah.
Are we actually off?
Yeah.
Are you sure? Because that light did not signal that we were off. That light signalled...
We're off, mate. There's no safety car.
No, not safety car.
David in the lead.
Are you sure? Because I'm pretty sure Formula 1 Farah would be more aggressive if we're actually in the race. I promise you, it did not show the lights, for we are underway.
There's time. I've got times on my TV. What are you talking about?
I'm pretty sure it's a formation lap. It's a formation lap, mate. They've got the green flags being waved. Fucking hell.
You wanted to know what to talk about.
Oh, I'm working with absolute amateurs. I say it plurally. You're the amateur. There's only one. Danger David out in first, then Formula 1 Farah in second, Mr. Wouter in third in the Red Bull, Andre in fourth place in the Mercedes, Fellow Son in fifth, Herman and Pleasant Snake, the two Haas drivers, sixth and seventh respectively, Jolly Boy John in the Red Bull in eighth, Tibran and Kovacska in ninth and 10th, Trugster and SCRF Tronk in 11th and 12th in the Aston Martins, RPM Simple in the Ferrari in 13th, the Nosebo in 14th, Quan in 15th, Teco 36 in 16th, Skid Solo 17th, Quincy 18th, Kismokus and Kachahu as the two drivers at the back of the grid, neither having set a time in the qualifying session. So It would certainly be interesting to see what those two drivers could actually bring, because we've not seen them yet. This is something completely new, of course, for us, for these two drivers, and having not seen them through the qualifying session, I'm not sure if there was penalties there that meant they had to miss out on the qualifying. I think it'd be interesting to see just how well they can do. Any expectations you've got for them?
Well, considering they're starting 19th and 20th, mate, I've got no expectation at all, which I think is fair.
But you've not seen them, which I think is also unfair.
But the record books are saying that they're 19th and 20th, so what do you want from me, Adam? Do you want me to say that I think they're going to come in and completely change the everyone's thoughts on what this league is, could be, and was, and ever has been, and might ever be? Or do you want to get stuck into the commentary of the first couple of corners of lap 1?
Oh. Well, Kosmokis has been disqualified, as has the Nocebo, and as has SCR Trunk, and that's all because of, as we know, the issues that we get with this game. We're about to get underway for 9 laps of a sprint race. We are now underway. Danger David on the left-hand side, cutting across quickly to try and cut out Formula 1 Farah, but he's had to slow down, allowing the Williams take out into first place. As we go through the first couple of corners, Danger David almost misses out to the Mercedes of Andy Andrai, as well as we see Herman make his way up into 5th place at the back of the screen at that point, going up on the inside. Formula 1 Farah trying to defend on Danger David. Danger David this time going out onto the outside, has to go slower, allowing Formula 1 Farah to regain the lead and keep the lead on the first lap of this sprint race. Herman moves up from 6th into 3rd place as his teammate remains in 7th over the first couple of corners, as well as Herman now starts the attack on Danger David, goes round onto the outside, has to stay onto the outside, almost forces him off track as Danger David holds on to the position, but doing that means Formula 1 Farah can gain another couple of tenths of a second ahead of the Ferrari driver. It is Formula 1 Farah out in 1st place, Danger David in 2nd, Herman in 3rd place as it stands at the moment, but Herman under a bit of pressure from Mr. Wouter, who lost out on 2nd place very quickly into this race. He's going to try and get his 3rd place at the very least back from Herman, but defending well is the Haas driver and the championship leader at the moment. We'll jump back on board with Danger David as he goes up onto, or looked like he was about to go up onto the inside of Formula 1 Farah, but changed his mind on these final couple of corners in Sector 3. We are very literally on board with him now as we're chasing just behind Formula 1 Farah. These final couple of corners, the Williams driver staying on the right-hand side as Danger David cut across the chicane. He's going to have to defend valiantly now, though, with Herman right behind him. It's a very short pit straight here in Silverstone, which makes it difficult for those overtaking opportunities. We'll jump on board with Herman as he prepares himself for another overtake to get himself up into 2nd place. It's been a great start for the championship leader so far, as he looks like he collides with the back of Danger David's car. It was very close, and it looked like I may have seen something come off the front of Herman's car, but nothing too much to worry about. It didn't change the direction of which the Ferrari car was going. It doesn't look like it's lost any pace from the Haas driver either, although he is now under pressure from Mr. Wouter. 5 cars all back to back with each other at the moment, going round these next couple of corners, heading towards the middle part of Sector 2. Formula 1 Farah starting to gain himself a bit of a lead from the pack at the moment. Just then it was half a second between him and Danger David as they continue round these couple of corners. I will jump on board with Mr. Wouter as he carries on putting the pressure on Herman to try and take 3rd place back from him. He's not allowing Herman to put that pressure on Danger David, because when you're trying to attack, you're going to struggle with defending as well. He's under pressure now, though, from fellow Son in the Alpine, who's gone up onto the inside, and on the other side of things, he's also got Andy Andre as well, and he's lost out on position to fellow Son. He's dropped down to 5th place, so on the brink of taking 3rd, he's fallen to 5th, and that's exactly what I was talking about just then. You've got to be careful at what points you're actually being aggressive in these races, because it could also cost you some positions. We'll jump a bit further down the grid at the moment, then on to Pleasant Snake 13. In fact, I'll come across to you, Skin, and see what you've been watching. I realise we're 3 laps in and you've not said much.
I don't know what I'm watching. Oh, there we go. Katja Who setting the fastest lap from bottom. There's the shock. No, mate, I've just been flicking up and down sort of the top 6 or so, very close. No one really getting a massive lead, which is good to see and makes for great racing. So, yeah, nothing really to report at this point. No major incident. It's good driving from all so far.
Well, I have jumped back on board with Herman, who is the closest to an overtake at the moment, and that is Danger David. We will see, I believe, at the end of this lap, the inclusion of DRS, which, of course, adds an extra 10 miles per hour to your car, and on those long straights that you do get on a couple of occasions here at Silverstone, it could prove very beneficial and quite vital when it comes to the championship battles and some of the overtaking positions that you end up with in a race scenario. He is currently 2/10 behind Danger David in the Ferrari in second place at the moment. He opens up DRS now with this opportunity, but Danger David also has DRS on Formula 1 Farahs. That gap has been closed significantly. He goes up onto the outside of Formula 1 Farah and gets the position from him. He's still under pressure from Formula 1 Farah, who we are on board with at the moment, very close to the back of Danger David's car, and it looks like he stumbled ever so slightly with Herman just behind him. He's got a lot of defending to do as well at this point. Trying to get a good camera angle is very difficult sometimes on this game, but Danger David has taken first place back from Formula 1 Farah, and Herman battling in third place as well. Fellowson in fourth. Mr. Wouter still defending from Andy Andre at the moment, but 4 laps into a 9-lap sprint race, and we are looking at a lot of drivers within a second of each other, which shows just how close this actually is. As we saw then Herman get past Formula 1 Farah, he's opened up DRS on Danger David. Formula 1 Farah's got that opportunity as well as he goes wide, rejoins the track, and he's almost lost position to fellow son. Can he capitalise? No. So Formula 1 Farah will stay in third place at the moment as Herman gets past him, and it's now Danger David out in front, Herman in second. 2/10 separates the two front runners that we kind of predicted at this point. Trickster's down in 8th place, Pleasant Snake in 7th, so if we can get them to a little bit higher, it makes it look like we know what we're talking about, as we'll jump on board with fellow son at the moment, who is just behind Formula 1 Farah, who might have dirty tyres after leaving the track for just a brief couple of seconds. But the Alpine can't quite get past the Williams on this occasion, and fellow son, for at least the next couple of corners, will remain in 4th place. As we jump on board with Herman, who is battling alongside Danger David at the moment. We'll go on to camera with Danger David, who's just behind Herman as the Haas takes the lead. He's now battling with fellow son behind him, who's gone ahead of Formula 1 Farah. And the distance is now starting to become apparent between Herman and Danger David, as we move back further down to fellow son in 3rd place in the Alpine. We'll go across to Formula 1 Farah, and we'll drop further back to Andy Andre, who's battling alongside Formula 1 Farah. He goes up onto the inside of him and then onto the outside into the next corner. He's going to remain on the outside for this one. He's going to have DRS in just a moment, as well as Mr. Wouter and Formula 1 Farah. If he can close the gap onto the Red Bull, he gets ahead of Formula 1 Farah, who has had a drastic fall over these last 2 laps. From what was leading this sprint race, he's now down in 6th place, and there's only one direction in which we seem to be seeing the Williams driver going in, Skin.
Yes, mate. It's been a very, very entertaining couple of laps there. I know you mentioned about the camera work, but there's nothing wrong with my camera work. That's why I'm here. Yeah, great battle for those sort of top 5 spots. Credit to all drivers involved. Very clean, very professional. And yeah, what more can you ask for when you're tasked with trying to watch as much of the grid as possible? Nadine David overtaken, as has fellow son, out of nowhere in not even one corner, going into one corner. Herman's dropped down from 1st to 3rd, trying to regain that 2nd spot, and has managed to do so. What a sprint race. I mean, we're 5 laps in, and as we know, anything can happen at any moment, but so far, what a sprint race to return to.
Certainly is, and I'm just watching at the moment whilst I'm trying to adjust to all the names of the corners. The thing I always struggle with in Formula 1 is the name of the corners, and we're about to come up to the Wellington Straight. I've had to research this just so I'm in preparation ready. This is the Wellington Straight, and we'll jump on board with Herman, who is just behind Danger David. He's going to have DRS to get him through, and he might just manage it. Has to go onto the outside. Can't quite capitalise on it. He's managed to get ahead of Danger David, but can't gain too much of an advantage. He gets the corner at the very last second, but still gets 3/10 ahead of the Ferrari driver. Gets out in front. Danger David in second. Fellow son in 3rd place in the Alpine at the moment. Let's jump on board with Pleasant Snake, who's gone up into 6th place at the expense of former One Faro, who I believe did pit in the Williams earlier. That's left him down in 16th place alongside Quan 23. So it may have been some damage that cost former One Faro. It looked very close. I said at one point, they were very close to Danger David. He may have just caught the car at some point and led to him having to pit. So we'll stay on board with Pledge. In fact, we'll move up to Fellow Son, who again is putting pressure on Herman as we go into the final couple of corners of this lap. He's fallen back down behind Danger David. His Fellow Son's making his way around. Not going to have the opportunity to overtake at this point. This is a lot closer than I really expected it to be, with the amount of cars that are this close to each other. One area could prove very costly, with many more positions than I expected to be the case 7 laps into a sprint race.
Contact there between Danger David and Herman the German. I think Herman just tried to squeeze into a gap that wasn't quite there. Danger David on the left turn, well within his right, taking that left-hander. Ooh, a few cars sliding about now. Like Dodgems, but could make for a very spicy last 2.5 laps or so.
There we go. I'll stay on board now with Fellow Son, because it gives us a good view of Herman just behind him at the moment. 3/10. He was a 10th behind when we decided to start following. Now 3/10 behind. And he can't quite, again, get close enough for the overtake on this occasion. It does allow Mr. Wouter to close the gap on him slightly from the Red Bull. He's getting considerably closer. I think there's a chance here where Herman could actually fall out of the top 3 as Fellow Son does get across past him. And we do have a yellow flag, and it is for Kismokas down in the Alpine, who is considerably further back and has received a penalty as a result of it. Herman now is who we are on board with.
Pleasant Snakes took a lunge, spun, taking a bit of damage. Took someone's wing off. I didn't quite catch who. Chaos. It all happened so fast.
It's all a blur as Herman goes just up the inside and goes.
David's gone wide!
I'll let you carry on. I'll let you take this bit.
Oh, Danger David's gone wide. He's let Fellow Son and Herman the German through, and he's dropped down to 3rd out of nowhere on the penultimate lap. Oh my God! It's all. Everyone, this is what you get when drivers are so close, getting so late into the race. That's where people start getting a bit tetchy, a bit risky, start taking those lunges, and down to the absolute fantastic driving that's taking place. The gaps just aren't there. 2 bits of contact, 2 drivers going wide within the space of about 30 seconds there. Oh, you got to love it, haven't you?
Absolutely, and I'm staying on board at the moment with Herman, who is fighting for first place at the moment. He's now less than a 1/10 of a second between him and Fellow Son, just as he tried for that overtake, and we are about to start the final lap of this sprint race. Can he get into first place just before we start it? Yes, he can, but he's going to have to do a lot of defending onto this corner. He manages to keep the position ahead of him almost immediately, though. Fellow Son's battling back. It looks very close between the 2 drivers. I was hoping for a better view from the camera angles. Can you not just change these manually? Change it to the orbit camera you'd normally see on a game like FIFA.
Camera work. That's why I'm here. You're here for the commentary. I'm here for the camera work.
Well, let's work that together then, because my camera work's having an absolute nightmare for me. So we'll go with Fellow Son now, a 10th behind Herman the German, as we go into the final lap. As Danger David had a look up on the inside of Fellow Son. He's staying very close, though. This isn't over as a battle between the top 3. And Mr. Wouter with an outside look, trying to get himself into the top 3, heading into the race that will start in around about 5 minutes' time. It is Herman the German out in first place at the moment, Fellow Son in second, and Danger David in 3rd place. Mr. Wouter in 4th, and Truckster up in 5th place in the Aston Martin. A great effort from him, considering where he started just before the end of qualifying. Half a second now separates the Haas driver from the Alpine, so we'll jump on board with Fellow Son, as Truckster is a second behind Mr. Wouter in 4th place there. It does look like it's going to be a 4-car battle for those top 3 positions, but still, anyone could be finishing anywhere at the end of the sprint race. As Fellow Son goes wide. I think he might have gained a little bit of an advantage on Herman there, but he does come out ahead of Danger David. He's used DRS to try and go up onto the outside of Herman. Can't quite capitalise, but Danger David's still just behind him, knocking on the door and upside alongside him as well. Mr. Wouter comes up onto the outside and takes third place away from Danger David on the final corner of the sprint race. Herman finishes in first place, Velos on second. Mr. Wouter, who was lying in wait for about 4 laps, took the opportunity when it came his way, and he will start in third place in the Red Bull. Danger David in fourth, Trugster fifth, Jolly Boy John in sixth, Andy Andre in seventh, Katja Hu in eighth, Kavakska in ninth, Teco 36th in 10th, Quincy 11th, Formula 1 Farah, after a great start to qualifying, will start in 12th place. Then Osebo 13th, Skid Solo 14th, and the rest follow. Any real surprises from you there?
No, I'd say I wouldn't say so, mate. Just again, fantastic driving by all involved. It's a sprint race. You know, we know the opportunities are limited. How will that play if we've now got that for around 3 times the distance? We're going to be in for a great 45 minutes or so. But I suppose two questions for you, Adam.
Yes.
You know, Herman finishing top. What's your thoughts on that performance? And secondly, can I get a high yeah?
No, you can't. But I said Herman was going to finish first place at the end of the sprint race, and thankfully he's not made me look an idiot. He has finished in first place. But I thought it was going to be the typical Herman domination performance. It wasn't. It was a very good battle between him, fellow son, Danger David, and at the final moment, Mr. Wouter. For the best part of it, Formula 1 Farah as well. They all got involved in the battle at some point. But I think when it comes to the race, you can't let him get over a second ahead, because that momentum then carries him the rest of the way. And as soon as you've lost that DRS chance, it's a game changer. And on this occasion, we aren't even going to see DRS, because the typical British weather is a downpour, which is going to make things much more exciting. So your thoughts on, obviously the approach is going to be intermediates or wets, if that's what it recommends at this point. And there's going to be hoping for dry track. This is where you really earn your money, isn't it, Skim? Because the cameras are going to cause chaos simply because of the weather.
Yes, mate. We know rain means chaos, so we're very interesting, and not just the effect that it can have on track and corners and grip and everything else like that, but changing up pit strategies when it starts to get dry. When people pit, some will pit 1 or 2 laps sooner than others, 1 or 2 laps later than others. So yeah, it is rarely boring and uneventful when the rain is falling.
It does cause a lot of havoc. It also causes different strategies when the drivers choose to go in for those medium, soft, or even hard tyres, depending on when the rain stops throughout the course of the race. Obviously, we can talk about those different strategy approaches. Or is it going to be rain throughout the course of this race, which will, of course, add another 15 to 20 minutes to the race time and the expectations. So, with the top 3 now confirmed for this race, what are your predictions for who's going to finish in the top 3 at the end of the race?
Herman, Formula 1 Farah, Danger David. What about you?
I think Herman's going to be there. I think Katja Hu is going to be there. Starting at the very back, you said you have no expectations for them because he started in last, but he's actually going to be starting this race in, I think it's 8th place, after a phenomenal qualifying session. So, sprint race, sorry. So I think it's going to be a case of build on that. And I think based upon how close some of these drivers at the top have been, there's no reason why you can capitalise, especially in this wet weather. I mean, it really is anyone's race, isn't it, in these circumstances? It makes things very difficult, and that's where we might see plenty of safety cars, of course, and you can bring out all those garbage time conversation starters that you've got on your little app or whatever it is that you decide to ask stupid questions as a result of. And I think 3rd place, it's difficult to go against Danger David, so I think I'm going to have to go for him. So Herman, Katja Hu, Danger David.
Interesting.
That's what I'm going to go with.
And I can't wait for not one single one of those drivers to be in the top 3 after the rain causes absolute chaos. So let us see. But there is going to be a short break while the drivers just have a swift break for the loo and a drink, no doubt. Rehydrate, ready for around about 40 to 45-minute race. Adam, before we carry on, why don't you tell the good people that are watching and will rewatch what's happening in your commentary world?
Oh, yeah, of course. It's been quite a while, hasn't it? So a lot has changed since the days in which we did these Formula One commentaries. I am now doing football commentary for a company called Flashscore, covering Premier League games, international competitions such as the African Cup of Nations, which has recently concluded, looking towards the hope of covering European football and, fingers crossed, football coming home. We'll hear a lot of that, I'm sure, on all my social media pages as the Euros draws closer. And hopefully then, of course, in a couple of years' time, the World Cup. But yeah, at the moment, there's a lot of Premier League games that I've been covering. The likes of Man City have been involved in it, Manchester United, of course. And this weekend, I've got the very desirable fixture of Crystal Palace versus Burnley, which I know you can already tell me, Skin, is very exciting. Or at least I'll make it sound exciting, just like you're going to do for this formation lap.
Yes, mate. Well, hopefully this race will be more entertaining than what we're assuming that match will be at the weekend. But yeah, let's see. Do you want to commentate on this lap as if it is the first official lap, or shall we just continue making random conversation for the next 60 seconds or so?
You do what you want, mate. It's wet tyres that they've all decided to come out on at the moment. I'm just going to check that it is everybody that's gone for those wet tyre options. It is, which tells you how bad the downpour is. It's a case of then, though, it's difficult to try and guess when you should move from the wets to, as we've got going off Herman straight away on the formation lap. So taking things very slowly and skidding off in the formation lap. He'll be able to regain his position when we get round to the front. But you going off in this wet weather onto the grass, onto the gravel, will affect the tyre conditioning, absolutely. But it's also guessing if and when this rain calms down, whether you're going to get that opportunity to drop to intermediates or whether it's straight onto slick tyres, isn't it? So they've all gone out on wets at the moment, and it makes things, we know, sheer chaos and havoc and whatever else comes with it. But, they're going around at the moment, Maggots and Beckett's. These S's are an absolute nightmare in dry weather, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Absolutely.
Excellent. Valued input and detailed input as ever from you. So Herman making his way through is who we are on board with at the moment as he goes round onto the pit straight. This time, for a change, you can get things underway for us when the lights go out.
Really? Okay. What do you think? Interesting, that, isn't it? Aggie's left me high and dry. Last thing I'll leave you with before we start this race, for those of you that are new to the channel, new to the races, and will be watching or re-watching this and hearing us for the first time, Adam's favourite crisps are Wotsits, and his favourite way to digest them is through his anus, which is really weird, but there's your interesting fact of the day. Here we go. We are in Silverstone. We are ready for 26 laps on 50% race. Herman starting after winning the sprint race just a few moments ago. Fellow son, a newcomer to our commentary adventure, shall I say, in second, and Mr. Wouter 0013 also in third. Here we go. It is almost time for lights out. I'm on board with Nate Danger David to give us full view of the front three, and here we go. The rain, as always, that lack of traction, really struggling to get up to speed, means that Truckster, what a start, has moved up into fourth. Danger David has got that place back though, but yeah, you can always tell that car's trying to spit its back out, much like Adam's Wednesday night activities, but I'll let you figure that one out. And yeah, as it stands, the top four is as it was at the start. No major incidents to discuss unless I missed something lower down the grid, but for now we have to concentrate towards the top because that's where the points are won. Though everyone seems to be taking it steady, waiting for their opportunity, which will no doubt come over the next 26 laps. There's going to be pit stops, there's going to be weather changes, really heavy at the minute, full wets required. it should mean that under these conditions where you're really struggling to see what's in front of you, anything can and probably will happen. But Adam, what are your thoughts on the first half a lap or so?
Well, I saw almost immediately Kwon struggle, and he's fallen back to the back of the grid. The thing about this weather is, of course, that you do not have to pit. If you can make the tyres last the full distance of the race, you can, of course, do so. Although we did see just a moment ago the potential strategies is that of a pit stop after 13 laps to stay on wet tyres. So early indications show they are not expecting the rain to ease up just yet, as down in 8th place Andy Andre gets past Teco 36 and manages to keep that position. Teco 36 then loses out to Pleasant Snake as well in the Haas. Though Pleasant Snake's actually gone up on the inside and just for a moment got that position back, but Andy Andre manages to defend really well. And Pleasant Snake moves into 9th place, Teco in 10th at the moment. So we'll jump on board with Danger David, who is just behind Mr. Wouter. He's fallen into 4th place, and the Red Bull up into 3rd. So we have got Herman in 1st, Fellow Son in 2nd, and Mr. Wouter in 3rd at the moment. Danger David really close to Mr. Wouter, but the braking obviously has to come a lot earlier at this point with this weather because of the skidding and the sliding of the car, as Quincy falls just behind Kavakska and then gets the position back soon after. We've got another change between Andy Andre and Kachahu. He gets the position ahead of him, and we do have a yellow flag out. Skin, who is that for?
I don't actually know, mate. I'm on board currently with No Danger David. It could be, I think it's for...
It's Gizmokus.
Gizmokus, down in 19th, gone off track, just trying to readjust, but huge gap already. There's going to be some blue flags. Oh no, they're not. They're fine, but yeah, Skid Solo is Mokus and Quan 2-3 are way behind the rest of the track. Obviously not been keeping an eye on them. Well, I was saying that Skid Solo is not too far behind, but I think there's a bit of an issue with the sort of times on the left hand side, because he's not over a minute behind the rest, so yeah, not really sure what's happened there. But anyway, as we go towards the end of lap 2, Herman the German sets a new fastest lap. Fellow Son in 2nd sets a new fastest lap, 42.8 on those full wets. We know going to be a much slower fastest lap time than if they were on dry tyres, but yeah, closing the gap. Another 2 or 3 of those lap times, and Fellow Son is going to be right up side of Herman the German, if not ahead in 1st place. But yeah, really, considering the conditions, not really too much to speak about, but we know how many times have we said that, how many times have we been as Fellow Son looked to make a move and seemed to have had the gap and then slammed the brakes on, probably wasn't going confident in going into that corner with that much speed considering the conditions. So he saw a door open, he didn't quite fancy the opportunity of stepping through it though, remains in 2nd for now. But yeah, how many times have we been watching a pretty conservative incident-free race, and we're right towards the last stages and then it just turns into chaos. So again, not holding my breath on this being a completely clean race as of yet.
We've seen plenty of different things happen throughout our course covering Formula 1 races on F1 2023. As we can see on the left-hand side, Kachahu gets ahead of Jolly Boy John up to 7th place. I have stayed on board with Fellow Son around those last couple of corners. It was a very good overtaking opportunity, and I think in dry weather he was getting that position away from Herman as well. So I think it's going to be a good battle between these two at the front, barring no incidents where they lose control of the car. I think as he came out of one of those corners, it looked like he might have just lost the steering ever so slightly, but he managed to get things back on track very quickly. They didn't prove too much of a detriment for him. There are already 2 seconds between him and Danger David, who's in 3rd place, but cars are now having to slow down due to a virtual safety car, and I believe that is going to be because of Jolly Boy John, who's made his way now into the pits. I'm not sure if there's been too many incidents that have gone on that have caused that. As Pleasant Snake makes his way up into 10th, we start to see plenty of cars pitting, and that's the thing with Silverstone. When you're going into the pits, you overtake a lot of cars before they get you back, don't they? Because you're going into the pits by overtaking him, and Andy Andre gets a penalty for speeding in the pit lane, So he's going to have a drive-through penalty as we are now on to a full safety car.
There we go then, put our feet up. Adam, I suppose we can use this opportunity because we've got to assume that drivers won't be pitting, especially when they wouldn't in dry conditions in this league. I certainly can't see it in the conditions that we're currently in. F1 season, just around the corner. Give us, you don't have to give us outright predictions, but give us a couple of thoughts and sort of, I suppose, mini predictions on how you think this upcoming season will go.
I think Lewis will get that fed up of Mercedes that he'll actually leave at the end of this season.
Okay.
I just think he's had enough there, so I think it'll be time for him to move on. I think Ferrari's probably a likely place that he'll end up, but who knows. As for his replacement, which of course is the big talking point, I think it's pretty much set in stone that it's going to be Lando Norris, but no one's admitting it yet. I think Lando's going to have a very good season for us. We've certainly seen improvements in the McLaren car over the course of last season towards the back end of it. That it's nice to see us not necessarily competing with the Red Bulls, because we know that's still very much down the line, but competing with the likes of, to an extent, the Ferraris, the Mercedes. At some point, we've been neck and neck with the Mercedes, and both George Russell and Lewis have been struggling to keep the pace on both Lando and Piastri. So I think, it's good to see us back up there. If the developments that we hope have happened over the course of the winter break, it'd be nice to see us maybe knocking on the door of, if not Max Verstappen, Sergio Perez, because we know he doesn't have the same pace as his teammates. So it'd be nice to see us at least competing with one of the Red Bull cars, if not both. I do, however, think it's going to be another Max Verstappen win. I think the championship will be back with him once again. I think he will tie, if not beat, Lewis and Michael Schumacher's record, and then he will retire and move on to whatever he decides to go on to next. What I do want to ask you about, away from the real-life Formula One, is the decision that Mr. Wouter and Truckster have taken to go into the intermediate tyres. The rain doesn't look like it's slowed up much. The wet tyres still look like they're struggling in some areas. So is it a bit of a risk for those drivers to go into intermediates, or do you think they've kind of just gone, all out?
It's obviously a risk. I do think that the conditions have slightly improved, certainly from the first couple of laps. I'm just on board with fellow Sun behind the safety car, and vision is relatively clear. Granted, they're not going at full speed, but that can sometimes lead into the struggle for grip because the tyres are going a bit cold. But I think by the time the safety car's gone in, which we'll very shortly find out if that will be at the end of this lap or not, as it slowly approaches the end of Sector 2, which is then usually the sign on if it's going in or not. So let's see, and then we'll speculate from there. Just about to cross the line now, and there is no notice, so safety car will be out for at least another lap, which will allow the rain to die down even more, and it could play into their hands. It could be a risk that will pay off, because assuming, we've not seen the weather forecast of course, but assuming that the rain continues to slow down, the cars that haven't gone in will be going in at some point. So,
fellow Sons, he looked like you were about to go in.
I tell you what, if that was an NFL player there and they dropped their shoulder on a player like he's just dropped the shoulder on the pit entry, there'd be some broken ankles.
Oh, he's breaking ankles, yeah.
It'd be interesting to hear what the thought process was behind that one. As Danger David has decided to go in, as well as quite a few drivers. But it seems like a couple of drivers have done that, and a lot of others are now following suit, not wanting to be left behind. But you've still got quite a few drivers, top 6 onwards: Truckster, Mr. Wouter, Catcher Who, T-Bram 1, Teco 36, and the current leader, fellow Sun, all remaining out on the wet tyres. So again, if they now think, right, shit, I better go in because everyone else says they're obviously seeing something, that's going to change the grid up even more. And as it stands, we'd actually put Kovac 95, no it wouldn't because they've been in, just looking now, it's about half and half of the grid to be fair. Danger David in 12th with intermediates on.
Mr. Wouter, wouldn't it? In the intermediates.
Yeah, it would actually, you're right. So, I said put our feet up and discuss real life F1 while the safety car was out, but it turns out that exciting talking points come out of the safety car, and it's
Thing
mainly
is,
down
Ian,
to.
Some of these have gone in and pitted for intermediates, and that's fair. You know, you've got an idea of how the track's settling up at the moment. But some have pitted and come out on wet. So you've just mentioned, what if, down the line, Fellow Sun, Teco all think, oh yeah, I've got to pit onto intermediates now. What if Herman thinks that? What if Andy Andre thinks that? They've just pitted and come out onto wet tyres, and they've lost a lot of track position by doing that. What if they've then got to pit again? And they've got drivers behind them on intermediates. That could absolutely screw up the chances of Herman or Andy Andre getting anything out of the race.
Yes, it will go down as a big mistake, but we won't know until the end. Hindsight is a wonderful thing, and that is because you have all the facts in which to make an opinion. For now, we can only speculate, accumulate, and if I know you well enough, then definitely masturbate. But yeah, as I always say, time will tell. We've got about just over 20 laps left. Let's see how we do. And again, the safety car is not coming in, so considering the lack of major incident that brought out the safety car, it is a bit of an extended one, and we are going to get at least one more lap. I would assume, based on how long it's been out, that at the end of this lap it will go in. So Andy Andre Agassi 1992 gets a 5-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane. Yeah, we've got at least one more lap, but yeah, I'm assuming it'll go in at the end of this one.
Well, he's chosen to repit, and Herman's chosen to repit. Have they both chosen to repit now, though, onto the intermediate tyres, feeling that the safety car staying out another lap is kind of like a gift to them? Yeah, they're both coming out onto intermediate tyres, so they're almost at the back. There's only Kizmokas that's behind them, and he's pitted into intermediate tyres as well. So it's really going to be a rags to riches story for them to get themselves back up to the top. But going out on those wet tyres has allowed them to see that intermediates was the right choice. And a lot of drivers have obviously gone through that approach. Now it seems to have kind of like reset and turned things back on its head. We spoke about what happens if they need to pit to come back out onto intermediates. They've got a lot of overtaking to do. And there's only really 4 cars at a push, 9 if you include those that have already pitted for those wet tyres, that are going to need to pit at some point. But that's now really reliant on the fact that the rain's going to stop, and I dare say the rain has settled. Just looking at it, it's not stopped, but it has certainly calmed down from how this race started, that we might even be finishing this race in dry tyre circumstances. So there might be another pit stop needed for a lot of these drivers. Is there a chance that you could maybe see Mr. Wouter and Trugster, who look like they pitted at the right time? Looks like the safety car fell very much into their lap, holding on to those intermediate tyres now for when everybody else needs to pit, and timing that pit stop strategy to perfection to come back out on those dry tyres, get the best of the time difference, and go on to maybe win and if not finish second in this race.
Safety car is in this lap, mate, so...
Well, I appreciate your thoughts.
I know. Well, let's just find out, shall we? Like I said, we can speculate, accumulate and masturbate, but let's crack on with the race and actually see what happens. Fellow Sun still out on the wet. We've got what? If I can do a very quick check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9... 9 of the 20 drivers on wet, meaning the 11 remaining of the drivers are on intermediate.
You did not need to do that counting, you ignorant shit. I have just said that there's 9 drivers out there on wet tyres.
Wait, listen, mate. 45% of the track is on wets, 55% of the track is on intermediates. Now it is time to tell which is the better choice. So, Adam, I'm on board with T-Brand. Just keep an eye on that first couple, and we'll keep an eye on the rest of the track. I'm going to move down to Trugster because he's right behind us. His car kicks out. Maybe, just maybe, intermediates aren't quite ready. Didn't have the grip there to make the move on Catcher Who in 5th. But Adam, take it away, mate. I'll keep an eye on the track in any instance that might happen. Now we have got a huge array of different strategies.
Oh, we was in sync for a moment just then, dropping from T-Brand down to Trugster as Kizmokas retires from the race. I am on board with Mr. Wout, who goes up onto the inside of T-Brand and takes 3rd place away from him, and those intermediate tyres proving better with the grip, as now Kwon is retired from the session. I'm not quite sure just what's happened, as the game seems to have ended.
No! No!
Did the game just end? I feel like we are in some very Stanley Parable motion at the moment.
What a game, by the way, for anyone. The Stanley Parable. Brilliant game. Right, nobody's saying anything in the Discord, which tells me we've just been kicked out. So I don't know. Surely everyone will be going, what's happened? Oh, no.
I'm not quite sure what to do. Mr. Wouter is typing. He's put, oh, wow. I'm not sure if that means he's out, or I'm out, or we're all out, but I'm happy for him, or I'm not.
3, 2, 1, first timer. I don't know what that means. We're restarting the race.
Oh, red flag.
Red flag!
It was red flag.
It?
It was red flag, so it just decided it's game, set, and match. But here we go, back again for 16 laps of this race. As someone's gone flying to the left, and I don't know who it is.
Going on holiday. He's gone off like he's taking off on a bloody fucking. I don't know what they call me. Mine's gone blank. What's the strip of land at a fucking airplane runway? He's gone down the home straight like it's a runway, ready to take off and go for a 2-week holiday in Tenerife. It's chaos. I don't know what's happening. Never seen a red flag before. Adam, keep me up.
Have you not? This is the second time I've seen one. Everyone has changed onto fresh intermediate tyres. It has reset the grid. It has reset the strategies. It means fellow Son out in first place has got a very good benefit on the back of Kwon retiring into a red flag. Teko in second place and Kachahu in third. Obviously, everyone's reset onto new intermediate tyres, which means the race is practically a completely new one now. The penalties will remain for those that hadn't served them. We've got 16 laps left to go. As up onto the inside there, you've got Kachahu and Teko colliding, and Kachahu's gone into the wall as Mr. Wouter capitalises, going up into third place at the moment. I'm not sure just how bad that damage is going to be for the Alpha Tauri, but his teammate takes second place as the two were battling side by side, and it spun Kachahu into the wall. Teko takes second place. He's 3 seconds now, though, behind fellow Son, as he's now got to defend against Mr. Wouter. There could be damage to his car as well. Mr. Wouter takes second place, and I think that was just before the virtual safety car was announced, which means I think Mr. Wouter will be allowed to keep second place. 4 seconds now separates him from first place, but I think he managed to get past Teko just before the virtual safety car. That was... See, the thing I don't like about that red flag is it's all well and good kicking us out the game for 20 seconds, but tell me there's a bloody red flag. Come on. Let me know what's going on.
Yeah, I completely agree, mate. I thought someone had crashed. I just saw someone had retired. Kwan had retired, and then it just went black. So, yeah, very strange on that one, but panic over at least.
Kachahu is out, by the way. Kachahu's gone back to the pits and he's retired. But Jolly Boy John, Skid Solo, Formula 1 Fire all in the pits. Formula 1 Fire coming out on medium tyres. So the interesting approach here is it's still bloody raining and he's gone in onto dry tyres. So the long game played by the Williams driver whose teammate has retired. Fellow Son out in first place as the full safety car comes out, and the last time this was out it took 50% of the race. So we'll see just how long we've got left. It's lap 11 of 26. Fellow Son, do you think whilst this rains out this will be a chance for many others to maybe pit and go in for dry tyres? I know it sounds silly, but if Formula 1 Fire has done it, do you think maybe then the dominoes will fall?
Mate, I'm still thrown off by that red flag, to be honest. I'm still trying to catch up that we're back in the race. No, it's still way too wet to be even thinking about that, isn't it? So I think we're at least half of what's remaining of this race to be even thinking about that.
Nice. Twat. Right, I could say Formula 1 Far out in first place. He's not down in 15th. So immature. And I'm buying it. Safety car's out at the moment. Fellow Son out in first place. Mr. Wouter in second. Teko 36 in third. Trugster fourth. Kavakska in fifth. Pleasant Snake sixth. Danger David in seventh. Danger David's had quite a fall, actually, down in seventh place. His strategy looked like it was actually going to work out in his favour. And that red flag seems to have thrown a lot of drivers off. And at the moment, it seems like there's a bit of questioning what's going on in the Discord between a couple of the drivers that feel that maybe Jolly Boy John caused the incident that saw Kismokas retire from the race. Did you see what happened? Nice one.
Sorry, mate. I believe. Well, I didn't see it. Obviously, it's to do with the incident that caused the red flag. Jolly Boy, obviously, currently last of the remaining drivers, but no, I didn't see the incident. But clearly, well, I say clearly, but from what I can gather, there's been some kind of contact, and someone isn't too happy with how that contact came about. But yeah, if you can just carry me for a couple of minutes, mate, I'll be right back.
Yeah, not surprised after that last noise that you made as Formula 1 Faro goes back into the pits onto the intermediate tyres, feeling that maybe going onto those dry tyres was not the right decision for him at this point. Fellow Son at the moment out in first place, just behind the safety car, all on intermediates. And I think with the assistance of the safety car, of course, while the safety car is taking the cars round, the speed is naturally much lower. It allows you to preserve those tyres, and the lifespan of those tyres could then maybe even stretch towards the end of the race. The first time that the safety car came out in this race, it lasted around about 4 laps before deciding to go back in, which means if it's the same again, we are only going to have 10 laps left of racing, which with these intermediate tyres, especially for the likes of Formula 1 Faro, who has pitted for fresh ones since the restart of the red flag, I think it will easily see them through to the end of the race. It's just whether the forecast itself will remain with rain, or whether we're likely to see the rain go and the track itself dry up onto dry tyre weather. As we can see down the bottom right, Formula 1 Faro now starting to close the gap on Jolly Boy John to rejoin the entire grid, preparing for the departure of the safety car and racing to resume. We've had 2 yellow flags and a red flag if you are late joining us for this race in the Silly Season League, race number 8 of 11, where a lot is at stake for the Haas drivers, leading the Constructors' Championship at the moment and the Drivers' Championship, with Herman out in first place and Pleasant Snake in second. At the moment, Pleasant Snake getting some very strong points, up in 6th place, Herman down in 11th. The team itself will really benefit from the fact that there was an issue between Catcher Who and Teco 36, who were both having some very good racing together at that point. And we'll just have to wait and see how the rest of this race unfolds. We do look around Sector 2 to give us an idea of when the safety car will come in.
Aye.
And you're back. I'm glad you are, because I was starting to run out of basic material. I wasn't quite sure where to go from there. So looking at the gaps, they're all keeping it within a second at the moment. There's always that risk when the safety car does decide to come in that drivers will try and close that gap considerably and get themselves a penalty for speeding under the yellow flags, but they all seem to be keeping it quite close at the moment, bar RPM Sinful, who's got 1.3 as the distance at the moment, and he's now been overtaken by Dino Sabo as he appears to have spun. So I've jinxed him, and for that I can only apologise, as it looks like some drivers have been told maybe even to let him pass, which I think is just one of those inconsistencies that this game offers. Formula 1 Faro down in 16th place. Who expected this after such a great qualifying session that saw him take 2nd place, as he goes off track this time to allow RPM Sinful to regain position. It means Formula 1 Faro is the last classified position on the race thus far, but 3 very different drivers on the podium at the moment, and that's always pleasing to see, as the safety car confirms it will be in. We will have 13 laps left. These intermediate tyres are expected to last around 13 laps, which means it's going to be a push for Formula 1 Faro to get these over the line. Even bigger a push for those that have only had them for 2 laps at the moment. And those that have had them for 3, if the rain does continue, and we are expecting to see intermediate tyres to the end of this race, it is going to be a big ask to get those tyres and the grip all the way through. The pace setter is Fellow Son. It's not as quick pace as we'd like to see, but it's the intermediate tyres that have brought that for us as he crosses round onto the pit straight. Right now we are back underway for the 3rd time in this Silverstone Grand Prix. Fellow Son is out in first place. We will jump back ever so slightly onto board with Mr. Wouter, who goes up onto the inside, has a little peek, decides not to go, and just heels a little bit. He'd lost his control of the car ever so slightly, and it nearly cost him a position to Tecco, who he's now closer to than he is the race leader, and it looked very close to him even getting the position away from the Alpine. As Tecco now in third place, 6/10 behind the Red Bull of Mr. Wouter. He's got Trugster just behind him. We will jump on board with Andy Andre, who goes up onto the inside of Herman and keeps his position, but Herman gets the position on Quincy. Now goes up onto the inside, this time of F. Tronk, and Herman may just even try to follow the Mercedes through into 9th place. He's not going to be able to do so on this occasion, but he's very close even still onto the next corner. I think he will get that position in just a moment. And now Andy Andre gets another penalty for corner cutting, and it's very difficult in the wet weather. There seems to be no give from the officials, does there? As Herman now gets a 3-second time penalty for corner cutting. It's very difficult to be able to keep your car on the track in this weather, and there's no give from the officials, is there?
No, there's not, mate. There's really not. It can be. Do you find it? It can be inconsistent at times, but I suppose we've not got the element of it being real life. It's just coding in a video game, isn't it? So it might not always be consistent. But a lack of. I'm quite surprised actually. I'm just looking up and down the times now, just trying to find sort of where there's not much of a gap. But to be honest, I'm quite surprised at the. At how much the track seems to have opened up already. Just on board with Nay Danger David now. Yeah, I mean, already got fellow son who's 1.5 seconds ahead of second. Yeah, quite interested by that.
Absolutely. You'll be pleased to know that this time I did not listen to a word you just said. As Formula One Fire takes a 3-second time penalty for corner cutting as well. The penalties now start to come in thick and fast as a result of what we were talking about. And should we expect the inconsistencies of a video game? Until, as a country, we can actually get real-life video technology correct, such in the world of VAR, I wouldn't expect much from video gaming. So Danger David is who I'm on board with at the moment in 6th place, battling alongside Pleasant Snake, who is considering an overtake in the Haas. He's got his teammate on his back just behind him. The two Haas could maybe work together to get past Danger David at this point, and it's a great climb from Herman, who was down in 19th place, as Jolly Boy John has also retired from this session. We've got him, Kachahu, Kwan and Kismokas that have all retired from this race. I am now going to jump on board with Pleasant Snake. Just drop back one so we can see how close he's getting to Danger David as he goes up onto the outside of the Ferrari. Gets the position. It's very close between the two. Keeps the inside line, but loses out to Herman, who follows Danger David through. The two Haas are now battling side by side. Herman accelerates and gets away from his teammates. That's great work from Herman, just going quick out of that corner and taking caution to the wind, considering the weather. Getting ahead of his teammate. He's now got Danger David, who's been held up by Kavakska as well. If he can get one of those, I think with how close they are, he could very much be on the verge of getting two in one overtake, as Pleasant Snake is just behind him.
Yeah, sorry mate, I was just very quickly looking up and down the track then, just to try and see if there's potentially anything going to be happening, but it seems pretty steady. Pecco over 2 seconds behind second. Mr. Wouter nearly 1.5 seconds behind first. Trugster in fourth, nearly second behind third. Could do with the rain really slowing down and some pit stops having to come into play to mix things up. But at the moment, just very quickly back on track. Herman the German down in 7th. Danger David down in 6th. Got to assume, considering the qualifying performance, considering the sprint performance, that they're, granted we've had a lot of safety car, as Herman the German really pushing now down this back straight. He does have the advantage of being on the inside corner line, but Nay Danger David brilliantly gets ahead just in time to be able to close that gap. Herman the German not giving up just yet though. Real battle for 6th here. But again, just the question I was about to ask you, as Herman the German does get ahead finally, and yeah, is now up into 6th. Great driving from the two of them, and Pleasant Snake saw an opportunity there and snuck into 7th, knocking Danger David down to 8th. So, going back to my question that I was about to ask you before that battle really intensified, you've got Herman the German in 6th, you've got Nay Danger David in 8th, that battle there for 6th place that they just had. Considering the qualifying performance, considering the sprint performance, granted, a lot of this race has been under the safety car, but surely they're going to be very disappointed, each of them.
Yeah, you'd think so, and I think it's been quite unfortunate as we just watch Herman going up onto the inside of Kvacka. Can't quite get the overtake done on this corner. Going to have to stay behind him, but he's also lost out position, or nearly lost position, to his teammate there as well. I think he's just comfortable with following him around the track at the moment. I've completely forgot your question. Yes, no, I remember it now. It was about the disappointment. I think they will be, but I think it's also a case that you've got to take into account how this race has unfolded. It's not like it's been human error from either of those that's cost them anything. They've taken a punt on a strategy, and I think with Formula One, in these sort of race circumstances with the weather, you are taking a lot of risks, especially with your strategies that, you know, there's not going to be a safety car or a red flag or anything like that. And on this occasion, of course, Herman and Danger David both pitted at what turned out to be the wrong time. They pitted under safety cars. Herman went for a different tyre strategy, eventually changed it and fell to the back of the grid. And then it all changed when the red flag came out. And everyone got to change their tyres and reset the tyres. And then, of course, he decided to go again, didn't he? And the yellow flag came out, and it cost him again. So it's been very unfortunate. I think they'll be disappointed in general, but I think they've also got to not overthink it, because it's a case of, you know, it's one of them races. It's not human error. It's not their error. It's just a strategy. And, you know, it's that old saying, isn't it? Hindsight's a wonderful thing. As during that
time, it's a wonderful thing, mate. Like I said earlier, it's when you've got all the facts and figures and know everything that happened. Until then, it's speculating, accumulating, and what's the third one, Aggie?
Ejaculate. Herman, Pleasant Snake, and Danger David, 5th, 6th, and 7th. Oh, right, okay, I've got it in the wrong order. That's why I've been going wrong all this time. Kvacka down in 8th place, battling with Quincy at the moment, so we'll jump on board there as they are neck and neck at the moment, and Quincy gets ahead of Kvacka in the Mercedes. Kvacka falling into 9th place in the Alfa Romeo. At the moment, that is the closest battle we've got going on, as we see the grass spitting up from the ground as the car goes over it. Danger David in 7th place. Kvacka's just been going backwards these last couple of laps. I think this is where we'll start to see those tyres really take the toll. But the thing is, all those that kind of went out early have had to go again, and now it's kind of reset the playing field. Everyone's back onto 7 or 8 laps full of these tyres, and we only have 8 laps left of the race. Could you really see intermediate tyres lasting in Silverstone for around about 16 laps? You probably wouldn't, would you?
No, I think it's a very fair point.
Would you expect to see, I mean, at what point then do you consider, I know it's so easy to just turn around and say it depends on the feeling of the car on these conditions, but at what point would you then be considering, right now we should probably do those pit stops?
I don't know. We've spoken about how, I suppose, poor we are actually at the game compared to this. This has really opened our eyes, commentating on these races over the last few months as to, you know, how far behind in terms of the quality of driving on track. But I do tend to go earlier than I suppose most. I think as soon as you start to notice it dry up, we know how quickly that track does dry up. So, you know, is it?
Are you there?
Yeah, sorry, mate, my controller died. So if you can just take over for 2 seconds, I'm going to change my...
I will do my best. We are on board at the moment with Herman, who is 0.1 behind Trugster. This battle isn't over. He's very close to Teco. Herman could very much get himself back onto a podium. And what a champion's performance that would be if he could manage to do just that. Of course, after this, we will have podium interviews with the top 3 drivers after this race has been completed. Herman now just behind Trugster. 1/10 behind him as he goes up onto the inside and can't quite get his car. He's actually pushed on the acceleration very early, goes up side by side, but has to go wide into the next corner. Keeps the inside line though as he continues his way through. Following him through is Pleasant Snake. If he can get that position, it's there to say his teammate will follow him through. On this occasion, that hasn't happened, and the two Haas working very well together, and Pleasant Snake just following Herman, although it's costing if he does end up braking too sharply and going into the back of his teammate. As Danger David then gets past Pleasant Snake. Very clean, very nice overtake. As now Herman starts to get the overtake done on Truckster. Gets ahead of him, and Truckster's job now will be to hold up Danger David and maybe even Pleasant Snake for how long he can in the Aston Martin to keep on to 5th place, as Herman now continues to press towards Teco 36. We're on board with Truckster as Pleasant Snake gets back ahead of Danger David, who goes wide, nearly loses out on the chance to overtake Truckster, but gets back quickly. Can't overtake him on this occasion, but Truckster holds on to 5th place. Danger David 6th, Pleasant Snake in 7th at the moment. This is the closest group we've got of cars battling on our way through in Silverstone, going through Sector 2, coming up towards Maggots and Beckett's. We're on board with Pleasant Snake, 2nd in the Drivers' Championship, 1st in the Constructors at the moment. Just watching Danger David putting some pressure on the Aston Martin of Truckster. And Pleasant Snake himself is under some pressure from Quincy, who of course invited us back for this one-time commentary of the silly season, and for that we say thank you. Hopefully we haven't made you regret it. Danger David now 6th place, 9-lap old intermediate tyres. We're on the final 5 laps of this race, and cars are having to be very careful. I think we are going to see rain now, so at this point, Skin, I assume you managed to put your remote on charge. At this point, you're not really going to see any change of tyres now, are you? You're not going to. If you pit, it's going to be intermediate for intermediate, isn't it? As we just see Herman overtake Teco. I will only assume that the silence means you either forgot to turn it on, forgot to unmute, or just haven't even put it on charge yet, which is any of those could be typical for you. So I'll carry on as I were. Danger David now following Truckster around the track, so we'll jump on board with the Ferrari, who is in 6th place as it stands at the moment. Just behind Truckster, ahead of the Haas of Pleasant Snake, whose teammate has got up into 3rd place. He is 6 seconds behind Mr. Wouter, so the front two have got a good lead at the moment. Herman would, however, fall down a considerable amount because he has a 3-second time penalty to be added on at the end. And that would fall him down into 8th place when all's said and done. So he really needs to have a great 3 laps, not just to close the gap on Mr. Wouter and fellow Son, but also to extend that gap on Teco 36, who we will jump on board with at the moment because Truckster is just behind him, and Danger David, in fact, will jump on board with now, who's under pressure from Pleasant Snake, but he's also close to Truckster still, and he's going to defend very well against Pleasant Snake going into the final corner of the lap. In fact, he's going to push Truckster now, going onto the pit straight, goes up onto what will be the inside line, going into the first corner, but has to stop just before they get to that corner. Skinny, you back with us? Nope. Okay, I'll carry on again then. Danger David goes up past Truckster this time onto the outside as there is a yellow flag towards the back. And I'm just checking who it is that appears to have had that problem as Danger David gets ahead of Truckster. There's very much battling between the two drivers at the moment. Pleasant Snake takes a 3-second time penalty for multiple occasions of corner cutting. Danger David gets ahead of Truckster, and it means not only does Pleasant Snake now need these overtakes, he needs to progress very quickly ahead of these cars, as Herman is now 6.5 seconds behind Mr. Wouter, but he is still 2.5 seconds ahead of Teco, and that 3-second time penalty will not even catch him in just a few moments' time if he continues at this pace over the next 4 laps, as Pleasant Snake goes onto the outside of Truckster to take 6th place away from him. Can't do so as he goes round the S's of Silverstone. So let's have a look at the view from Quincy's car as he's now joining this battle for 6th place between Pleasant Snake and Truckster. He will gain the position from Pleasant Snake as it stands at the moment because of that 3-second time penalty. But he's still got a fair distance ahead of Kovaczka, who's just lost out on position to Formula 1 Fire. As Pleasant Snake gets past Trugster on the inside, and Trugster gets the inside line on the next corner to take the position back from him as Herman continues this impressive streak of speed that he's got at the moment and sets a fastest lap. Pleasant Snake joins Trugster in remaining ahead of Quincy in the battle for 6th place, but Trugster does get the overtake on Pleasant Snake. We are now in the final 3 laps of this race. And we will jump on board again with Pleasant Snake, who's just ahead of Quincy. He looks more and more doubtful that he's going to get that 3-second distance that he needs from the drivers behind him. As it stands, Quincy goes up onto the inside, heading into the next corner. Just loses out on the battle, but it stays with Pleasant Snake for now. Again, that battle is far from over at the moment, as DRS has now been enabled, which means it's dry enough for dry tyres. And we have seen the first pit stop, and it is RPM Sinful who is coming out on soft tyres to see him through these last 3 laps of the race. It is very much caution into the wind for him, nothing to lose. And with 41 seconds the distance, can he get it as these intermediate tyres will start to wear on the cars very, very soon? Fellow Son has remained out. Mr. Wouter has gone into the pits. Herman is going into the pits as well. Danger David. See what Danger David chooses to do.
Are you ready for fun?
Danger David is staying out. Teco, I'm just going through the motions at the moment. Teco's just behind Danger David. He's chosen to stay out as well. Trugster is going to do the exact same. It's split. The grid is split on who's staying out and who is pitting at the moment, as there's now a 5-second time penalty for SCR FT Ronk, who is speeding in the pit lane. So he's going to take that penalty, and the intermediate tyres on lap 24 of 26 could very much change the course of this race. RPM Sinful was the first into the pits. He won't be able to catch most of these drivers on his way back out, as everyone else has chosen to go with the same strategy. So we'll jump on board with Mr. Wouter, who was 2nd place prior to his pit stop decision. Was it the right decision? Looking at the track, DRS is now enabled. I don't know if he was back for that point, Skin, but do you think that maybe going into the soft tyres for the last 2 laps was worth it, or do you think it's a case of you should probably have stuck it out?
We know how quick or how big the difference is in terms of time on a dry tyre and a wet one. It's tough, isn't it? Like you said, we've only, 3 laps to go. I mean, you've got a fellow Son who's 10 seconds behind of Nay Danger David. Nay Danger David isn't going to close that gap with them both being on intermediates. The driver that's currently in the lead on dry tyres is Mr. Wouter in 9th, so I'm going to stay on board with him. So I'll give a very good account of how quick that car is going to go compared. But 8 drivers in front with 2 laps remaining. I don't know. Is it a case of it's just a little too late and you're better off keeping your position and staying on the intermediate tyre?
Well, there are quite a few drivers that opted to go in for those softer tyres, one of which is Herman, who's down in 10th place at the moment. One that didn't is Danger David, who's up in 2nd and just set the fastest lap, which, with 2 laps left to go, may actually be beaten by multiple of these softer tyres, as Mr. Wouter is making his way comfortably past the No Sabo into 8th place. Do you think maybe
No
he could...
was struggling there, went very wide, which opened the door, so... Is that a case of now rain's completely stopped and the track is drying up?
Just look at the pace on the DRS, yeah, that Mr. Wouter, if you win this race, it's very much deserved. He's played an absolute blinder with that decision to go into the pits. I think if it had maybe come a lap sooner, he'd probably be on for the win, but I think he might just be missing out on fellow Son. I don't think he's going to have the time to get all the way round and catch him, as fellow Son isn't too far away from starting his final lap. Mr. Wouter's moved up now into 6th place, and that gap to Trugster is closing at the rate of knots. And then he's got Formula One Ferrari 11 seconds the distance there. He's still got a good 24 seconds between him and the current race leader, so it may be very close. Very much similar to that of Lewis Hamilton limping round the track with just 3 tyres on his car. So we'll see just how much Mr. Wouter can close that gap. It's already down to 10 seconds onto Formula One Ferrari, and that's just in the space of a corner. Fellow Son, I think, is quite comfortably ahead at the moment. I'll jump on board with him as he's making his way onto the Wellington Straight. Mr. Wouter 1:33.5. That's significantly quicker than any other time that we've got. But he's still 10 seconds behind Formula One Ferrari, and I think it is going to be too little, too late to catch the Alpine that is currently out in lead, making his way through Sector 1. No risks taken from him. The rain has evaporated as Pleasant Snake gets the fastest lap on a 1:32.8. Formula One Ferrari is now in 3rd place. Danger David 2nd. Fellow Son out in 1st. And Mr. Wouter moves up into 5th place ahead of Trugster. Herman has then moved up into 6th place, also ahead of Trugster. But I think the time difference is not going to be enough for Mr. Wouter, who did decide to pit from 2nd place with a 4-second lead over Herman and what would have been about a 13-second lead over Danger David. So I think he'd probably have been comfortable in 2nd place, but he's going to have to settle for a 5th place finish. But take nothing away from the risks that Fellow Son decided to stick out on intermediates despite what everyone around him was doing, as he takes the final few corners onto the pit straight, takes the checkered flag and maximum points here at Silverstone. Fellow Son in the Alpine wins the race. Danger David making his way onto the pit straight, of course going slower just to cool things down. No risks from him going into the wall. Formula One Ferrari loses out to Teco 36 due to a time penalty, so your top 3 are Fellow Son, Danger David and Teco. Formula One Ferrari finishes in 4th. Mr. Wouter gets 5th. Herman takes the fastest lap from him on the final lap of a 1:31.5. That puts him in 6th place. Trugster takes 7th. T-Bran 8th. The Nosebo 9th. Pleasant Snake 10th. It's going to be Quincy dropping to 12th, so Kovacs can move into 11th because of a penalty. Andy Andre takes 13th. Skid Solo 14th. SCRF Trunk in 15th. RPM Sinful 16th. Jolly Boy John, Catcher Who, Kwan and Gizmokus all got DNFs. It's been an absolute pleasure being back in the paddock at Silverstone and the commentary box alongside Skim. We will have the podium finishers interviews in just a few moments' time. Welcome back to race 8 of 11 of the Silly Season League, where we've just finished the Great Britain Grand Prix in Silverstone, having had a short qualifying session, 9 laps of a sprint race and 26 laps of a race. I am now joined by, at the conclusion, the podium finishers. We'll start with Pellison. First of all, congratulations on the race win, and what a race it was for you.
Yeah, thanks. It really, I had to gamble. I was hoping that it was going to rain the whole of the main race, so I went with really high wings, and I was really worried that I'm going to be overtaken in the straights pretty easily. But I managed to pull a gap. I was lucky that Herman didn't, or he did pit, but he didn't go for Inter straight away. And then I got really lucky with the red flag. But then, yeah, I just enjoy going in the wet. But as soon as it started to dry up, you could see that everybody was closing up to me. So, yeah, I'm just lucky it rained, really.
And when it did start to slow down with the rain, a lot of cars then chose to go in for those soft tyres. It proved quite controversial in some circumstances, proving different for the results. But you chose to stay out there on intermediates. Just how much were you feeling that on the tyres towards that final lap, knowing that there were a couple of cars out there on soft tyres that were setting incredibly quicker laps?
I just couldn't take my eyes off the top left corner. I just looked at the times the whole time to see if I have that little bit of gap. To try to just take it easy and try to get my tyres to the finish. Basically, in the last 3 laps, I was driving around quite slowly and gently because my front tyres were over 80%, and I wasn't sure if I can get a puncture. And I really didn't want that, just to mess it up, because I had quite a good race the whole time. So I just decided to take it easy and save the tyres.
Was there any consideration from you that you wanted to go on to the soft tyres, or was it a case of, no, you're confident that intermediates were the right choice?
I knew I was going to try to make it to the end on Inters. I didn't think it was worth it to pit and then just try to make that time back because, well, basically it was just too big of a gap, I think, which it turned out to be true.
Absolutely. Well, ultimately, you got the top step of the podium. That's the main thing. And, of course, you got maximum points from the race itself. So, Pellison, of course, congratulations and thank you very much for joining us for the post-race interviews. Up next, we'll go to second place on the grid, or on the podium, should I say, with Danger David. This seems to have been a formality that we've been taken away from us over the course of the last 6 months. But Danger David, of course, congratulations on a second place finish. What has been an absolutely chaotic race from you, at one point down towards the back of the grid, working your way back up as we know you can.
Yeah, good race. A lot of strategy had to go into that, and especially in the moment strategy as well, because it was a very dynamic race. You know, a lot of the guys that I'm racing side by side with, I've raced with, but there's a collection that I've not raced beside as well. And when you're in the wet conditions, you've got to be careful. I think I took advantage of most of the opportunities that became available. But yeah, it's a very good performance in my opinion. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And there was a couple of instances, I think more so on the sprint race, where maybe you'd gone a little bit wide on a couple of occasions, but it proved pivotal more so in the race, wasn't it, with the wet tyres demanding the start of the race. Then, of course, the red flag from you. That opportunity of the red flag was kind of a saviour, wasn't it? A lot of drivers had pitted at that point, yourself included. And then, of course, when the red flag came, it was kind of like everyone got that opportunity to reset, and you kind of go again, don't you?
Exactly that, yeah. So under the red flag, it does give you a little moment or two to take a breath, calm the heart rate down, and then just refocus for the restart and make sure you got a good launch on the restart of the race. But yeah, in the sprint race as well, it was a really good start. It was the dry conditions. My setup was more built towards the dry, but I knew I had the performance there for the wet as well. I was really thankful when we were under the red flag in the race. I seen that the dry weather was coming in the next 10 minutes, so I was quite confident. Stay out in the inters, keep consistent, and my pace will start picking up with my setup coming into play. It's just unfortunate that Felhosen had the distance by the time I'd cleared the rest of the pack. there was 9 seconds to make up, and it just wasn't possible at that point.
Especially on those, like you say, intermediate tyres. You said that you saw that the dry weather was coming. I suppose the same question to you then, really. When the dry weather did come about, you was another one that stayed out there on those intermediate tyres. Obviously, you capitalised on it and got second place. But when you said you saw the dry weather was coming, did your strategy change, like in your mind at that point when you saw others pitting, that you thought, no, you've got to see this through?
It didn't change, no, because I'd done the calculations in the moments on the straights, of course, and I realised that there was no chance within 2.5 laps to make up one of the largest pit stop times on the calendar. So I knew that there wasn't much risk of them catching up. I think the main thing was just keeping an eye on the tyre temperatures. So I made my mind up pretty early, but of course I was checking the weather probably every 3 or 4 corners. I was checking the weather when it started drying up just to see if I would have that opportunity. But when it came to 2.5 to 3 laps left, there was no chance of making up the distance in the soft. So my mind was made up.
Absolutely. Well, Danger David, thank you very much for joining us, and congratulations on a second place finish.
Thanks again.
We now move across to third place on the podium. Teco, what a race that was for you, and congratulations, of course, on third place. So I'll start the questions with you the same way, of course, I've asked the last two, and that was your approach to stay out there on similar sort of thing, the intermediates, when everyone started pitting for the dries, because, of course, drivers got much closer to you towards the end of the race. Was there ever a concern for you that maybe you'd lose out on that third place position?
Yeah, to be honest, the only circumstance I would pit under would be a safety car for softs, because I didn't think there was enough time for them to catch up. But let's be fair, like if they had 1 or 2 more laps, they would be right in front. So yeah, it was close, man. It was tight.
Absolutely, and for you, it was quite a strong race all the way through, wasn't it? There was no points where we really saw you towards the back of the grid and thought, even in the pitting circumstances, you seemed to have a very good strategy, even when changing from onto the intermediates under the red flag situation, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, the thing was that the rain was easy enough, so I thought, why not? But the thing was, I was running quite low wings compared to the others. Like, I wasn't necessarily set up for wet, so I struggled in the corners a lot. And but yeah, I mean, I was just hanging on. My tires were on like 83% in the end, so it was a bit mental.
I saw you put something in the Discord about how your tyres were struggling towards the end. With it being dry weather and wet tyres, just talk more about, how with that approach you said you were struggling in the first place into the corners. How bad was it for you in those corners when you were on the wet tyres in dry weather? Obviously, it must have been much worse, but how much did it affect the timing that you was able to get? Because you did lose a lot of ground on Danger David, naturally, with you having to take those corners much slower.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, when you're on tyres that worn out and they're wrong tyres at the end of the day, it's tricky, but you just gotta take it easy and hope for the best, and hope you get to the finish before the others catch up.
And it was a promising sprint race for you that really set you in a good position to kind of take the race by storm as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, quality was my practice, so I was somewhere at the end of the grid, but the more I practiced, the further in the front I got. So yeah, I got a bit lucky, man, to be honest. So yeah, I'll take it though.
No luck in Formula One. It's all about strategy. Take that one with you. But Teco, thank you very much, and congratulations on a third place finish. Quincy, we'll just end by saying to you, thank you very much for having us back. It has been an absolute pleasure for one last time. Or is it one last time? We'll see what happens down the road. Never say never, I think we said at the end of the last one. Never say never.
No, thank you so much, guys. I can't wait to watch it back. Thanks for coming back for me this time. It really came through for me. Thank you.
Not a problem, anytime. So thank you to Quincy, thank you to all the drivers. It has been one incredible race in Silverstone that has concluded. Until next time, thank you very much.
Bye!